Hello, everybody. Hopefully, we got these audio issues worked out for the video blog, so if you can understand me all right. But this is Wave 3 meteorologist Brian Good with the latest edition of Storm Talk, and we do have quite a bit to talk about. We've been talking about Wednesday for several days now, so we're going to dive a little further into that. I will say right off the bat, because the timing of this video being taped, the SBC update has not came out yet for tomorrow, so it's likely going to happen as the video is uploading. So I'll put the latest image up on social media, or I'll attach it right to the blog itself so you'll see it. So I'm going to show you some maps. It may be updated by the time I get done, and it very likely will. I got a feeling they're going to issue a moderate risk, but we'll see what they do. All right, for us for this afternoon, I do want to touch base here because we've had some drizzle and clouds around throughout most of the day. Now the sun is breaking out. It's hazy sunshine. But it is out, and it's very humid outside. And the Storm Prediction Center, we are expecting storms to develop this afternoon. They've already issued a statement saying that they're watching this area, but they're not planning to issue a severe thunderstorm watch for storms that ignite in this area up the 71 corridor through Ohio. We already starting to see a small development here in portions of Illinois. I think for us, what this is going to look like is once the sun has a chance to heat up Indiana, we're going to see thunderstorms develop, and they'll kind of just drift to the south and east here. And actually, the weekend, once we get into sunset, because they're only reacting to the sunlight, but there will be some scattering of showers and storms moving in from the northwest. And I agree with the Storm Prediction Center. I just don't think there's going to be a whole lot here to talk about when it comes to severe weather for this afternoon. But a few gusty ones, we'll watch it. Out to the west, different story, pretty active already into areas of Nebraska. Already got a severe thunderstorm. Watches and warnings are being issued. Now, Ryan Hoke, by the way, is out here storm chasing in Nebraska. We'll be hearing from him later on in the newscast. Make sure to tune in for that. This is going to be a big area here of concern for big storms this afternoon. Lots of high wind for that area. And we'll be tracking that because as we head into today, there is a moderate risk already out for that area where there's going to be a complex of storms, mesoscale convective system. Likely to have a derecho with it, and you may be hearing that term a lot. It's kind of a catchphrase sometimes with media and social media, but derecho is a long high wind event that can sustain itself for several hours and can produce widespread wind damage. The last derecho that I can really recall experiencing was in Bowling Green, and that was July about 2003, and it dove in from Indiana, went straight south, and boy, I tell you what, that did a lot of damage. That day. I think it actually impacted Indianapolis as well. But we get them every now and then, especially in the summertime. They're high heat, high energy sources that, and the winds are just perfectly aligned. You get some wind damage. But that's what's going to happen here tonight. There's going to be a high wind event. It's going to streak south and east. And notice how the moderate risk cuts off in Illinois because they're expected to weaken as they approach southern areas of Indiana. Still, the slight risk is close enough, obviously, that we got to watch you guys from say Jackson, heading back toward areas of Lawrence County, because you could certainly still see a strong storm out of that before it falls apart completely. And once you get into Louisville, the chance diminishes more, and even more so off to the south. But we'll watch that trend for the overnight period. And then tomorrow, this is the main concern, is going to be Wednesday. We're outlining the entire state of Kentucky is outlined in a slight risk. I got a feeling, though, as I'm talking, they're going to probably upgrade to a moderate risk, and it may be shaped kind of similar to this. If I had to guess right now, there could be a moderate risk in that fashion based on the midday model runs that are coming in. We'll see how that plays out, but it does include all of us right now, the slight risk certainly, and we'll break those down for you in more detail in just a second. First off, let's get into how things are going to evolve on the radar. This is the most likely scenario in Futurecast, and the NAM model is pretty similar, and GFS is a little different, but keep in mind, until we launch the weather balloons tomorrow, at sunrise, we're really not going to have a great handle on how things are going to play out, but at least we have a decent idea, and this is how it's looking. This afternoon, mention those storms that will develop across Indiana, pushing to the south. They fade away as we head toward midnight. Now, look to the top of your screen. See that? There you go. Here comes that complex of severe weather in the Plain States. Makes a run for Indiana. And then it gets right into our northwest counties near sunrise for tomorrow morning, and then it falls apart. But here's the important part. There is actually going to be a cold front that is going to be attached to this, stretched out. And the main core of that mesoscale convective complex is going to head into Ohio. But it's going to be the tail end of this that's going to be extended out along the cold front that we're going to have to watch. Where does this boundary set up? Is it going to develop right over us? Is it going to develop more across central Indiana? How cloudy are we going to be? through the midday time frame. And there's a lot of questions here from about 11 a.m. tomorrow to about 3 p.m. That is the time period we've got to nail down to determine how things play out after that into Wednesday afternoon and Wednesday night. Right now, the best guess is somewhere just south of I-70, the tail of the old boundary of the complex of storms that came through in the morning hours for Wednesday, and where the cold front will be placed is going to be the initiating point of showers and storms. Now, based on the data we're getting, as soon as they initiate, first ones to fire on the radar have the highest chance to rotate and produce a few tornadoes. That's something we're going to have to watch. Once they get going for a while, it'll become nothing but a solid line, as you'll see in a second, and then it's more of a high wind threat, and your tornado threat gets reduced. But the initiating storms, the very first ones, or the first couple of hours of this entire event, are the ones we've got to watch that have a high likelihood to rotate initially. And we don't know where that's going to be yet. It may be Southern Indiana, it may be Illinois, it may be very close to Louisville. We just do not know yet. Not a March 2nd type of deal here, folks, all right? So I don't want to scare you. I'm not trying to say that. I'm just saying there could be a chance for rotating storms and a few tornadoes as we head into the initiating line. Once it gets going, it's going to try to get better organized. Now, the trend on our in-house model, the RPM model, has been trying to focus more between Louisville and Paducah for the main focus of the highest bow echo, or the strongest bowing segments here of high winds. The NAM model is a little more to the north and east, but does include the entire I-64 corridor, basically. We still got to fine-tune that, but at any rate, by the time we get into 7 o'clock in the evening, we should have a better organized line here of storms. This is when your high wind threat's going to kick in. And then it'll keep on pushing to the south into Tennessee by the midnight time frame. To break down the threats, I've got the tornado threat in the moderate risk category right now, and this is our own categories. This is not SPC. These are our own thoughts. I've got it in the moderate risk right now for tornadoes just because of that initiating point when the storms first develop. That is concerning to me for that. Now, once they get organized, it becomes a high wind threat, and there is the chance for some of these storms to produce hurricane-force winds tomorrow. I mean, 75-mile-per-hour winds, if not a little bit higher, are not out of the question. So I've gone high on the high wind threat for straight-line winds once the individual cells get organized, and that's the key. When does that happen, and where is it going to happen? And there is going to be a hail threat, especially for the initiating storms. There will be a hail threat. And because the storms could train themselves over and over, there is going to be a flash flooding threat. There's a lot of moisture for the stain to work with, but it does look progressive. Once it becomes linear and becomes organized into a line, it'll keep on chucking and to the south, and that'll hopefully reduce the heavy rain and flooding threat. But nevertheless, questions we got to answer. How did the storms impact us tomorrow morning? That'll move in from the plain states. How much do they weaken? And then we got to determine the boundary. Where does it leave behind a boundary in the morning? And the models just vary, and we got to have that answer. Once we determine that, then we have to determine how much sunshine we're going to pick up between late morning and early afternoon tomorrow. And then they initiate. As soon as they initiate, they can rotate. That is going to be your tornado threat period of time of day, and that'll be early to mid-afternoon. Most likely, central, southern Illinois, and southern Indiana. That's the zone to watch. Then as we get into, say, 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, those individual cells become more of a line and push southward, and that line is going to have a very high wind potential with it as it pushes southward, and that is where widespread wind damage can take place if it can get organized. And it looks to be mainly across Kentucky versus Indiana once it gets to that point. And we don't know how far east or west it'll stretch, but it looks to be across Kentucky. So, and then everything will calm down by late evening across the entire area. So, very tricky forecast. Got a lot of shaking and moving going on here from morning to afternoon, and that's why we want to make sure you're aware of what's going on. We're not trying to hype it up or scare you. It's more about informing you so you know the times of the day to be alert, and it's pretty much going to be all day for a lot of us here. But we'll watch things in the morning. We'll see how things progress for midday. And by the time we get into, say, 2 or 3 in the afternoon, onward to about, say, 10 o'clock at night, that is the time period we're going to have to watch carefully for these storms and different modes of severe weather to pass through the area. So that's the latest right now. Again, I'll update you guys on the latest outlook from SBC on the blog and social media as soon as it comes out. All right, thanks for watching. We'll have much more today beginning at 5 o'clock.